Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report. And coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about some Raiders OTA news. And then on top of that, just some other Raiders rumors that I think would be important to know. I do have to tell all of y'all that today when I woke up this morning, I was hoping that I'd be able to provide more information on the Raiders practice from May 22nd. I'll be honest, I didn't get anything, and I'm never trying to lie to y'all up here. So all the news, all the notes that you're about to see are from May 21st, so please keep that in mind. But I do know that the Raiders did practice today, which means they have completed 3 of their OTA practices, so they have 7 left. The next time that you will see the Las Vegas Raiders on practice field will be May 27th, so they get a little 4 days of rest, and the remaining practices are down there below. So May 27th, the 29th, the 30th, and then from June 2nd all the way through June 5th. Let's go to the first note today, and it was funny. When we were talking about this live, somebody mentioned, Julian Edelman. Shout out to Robert Joseph. He was the one. And I said, if you want to talk about the next potential Julian Edelman for this Raiders team, I think it might be Tommy Mellott. And I know that is a massive, massive thing to say, but when you are seeing the way that the Silver and Black are using Mellott, they clearly have a plan in mind. And that is to use him in the slot. And I'm not going to say which player, but I was talking to somebody, let's just say close to Mellott. And I said, well, how's practice been going? What's it been looking like? And he cooked somebody on the 21st. And this player is a potential starting defensive back for this team. Malot is really surprising a lot of people out there in his early athletic ability and his route running. But it's his intermediate quickness. His hands got to get better from some people that I'm talking to. But again, he is just now learning this wide receiver position. Julian Edelman was a quarterback turned wide receiver, and he wasn't nearly the athlete that Mellott is. Mellott is looking a lot better than what I actually initially anticipated at the start of Raiders OTAs. Let's go to another player here that's catching some eyeballs, and honestly, he caught an interception from Geno, and it was funny. I was talking to some of the guys yesterday about practice, and Eichenberg would have had a pick 6 from everybody that I was talking to. Sounds like he would have had a pick 6 on Geno, but when the Raiders moved on from Amari Burney, myself and probably a lot of the Raiders fans out there were sitting back going, okay, if it's not Burney and if it's Landon Roberts and Devin White, who's going to be that other linebacker that steps up? I do know that Amari Gaynor has been impressive. I did talk to a source today about Cody Lindenberg and said Lindenberg is really being a sponge and soaking it all up. I haven't really heard in terms of how he played. But for Eichenberg, what if he's that guy that takes that step forward? Like, our expectations on Robert Spillane were not very high. Let's be honest, they weren't. But Eichenberg, I do think, was drafted to kind of be that Robert Spillane type of player where you go, honestly, from an athletic standpoint, he's not the most athletic linebacker. He's not the most athletic guy on the team. But he always seems to be in the right place at the right time. And that mentality is really starting to show up, I think, early on. And again, it's 11 on 11s. It's, not physical. But Eichenberg showing that he can cover. That's really, really good. And I was told that he's a sneaky linebacker 2 candidate next to a Landon Roberts. Let's go to another player here, the rookie Darien Porter that the Raiders ended up drafting in the 3rd round. Number 68 overall. Pete Carroll mentioned Eric Stokes on Wednesday and said that Stokes was catching his eye. I don't know how well Darien Porter participated in the drills and the 11 on 11s, but he did work with the ones a lot. Now, for me, I anticipate Jacorian Bennett is going to be a starting corner. But if Pete Carroll is saying, hey, Eric Stokes is catching my eyes, and if Darien Porter, who was drafted by this regime, is also working with the ones a lot, I almost am curious if there is another plan in place maybe for nickelback. Like Darnay Holmes, from what I gathered, and again, this is just from one of my sources, Darnay Holmes has not particularly looked great early on at OTAs. I was actually told a name to keep an eye on was Thomas Harper, who played a little bit of free safety last season for the Raiders, and watch out for Harper to actually compete with Darnay Holmes at nickel. But what happens if it's Darien Porter, Eric Stokes, and what if they try to kick Jacorian Bennett in? Or what if they try to move a guy like Eric Stokes in? I don't know the exact plan, but when you look at the fact that this is the regime that drafted Darien Porter and Pete Carroll spoke highly about Eric Stokes, I am a little bit intrigued of what this organization thinks about Jacorian Bennett. I'm not going to lie. And then probably the most notable thing that I gathered from Raiders practice, and when I say most notable, the thing that I'm going to really, really pay attention to over the next week, over the next 2 weeks, especially after June 1st, Thayer Munford. Thayer Munford is not participating at Raiders OTAs, and I don't know why. The Raiders don't know why. They don't have to release any information out there, and I understand that Munford, last offseason he was dealing with some wrist issues, both of his hands. Last season was dealing with a knee injury, which forced him to miss, I believe it was like 3 games off the top of my head. But for a guy like Munford, all of y'all are sitting here going, that's not good. Because I know that Munford is fighting and clawing right now for an opportunity. And the fact that he's not participating and the fact that nobody knows why he's not participating, the first thing that makes me think of is, does he want to get moved on from? And if he wanted to be traded, I honestly wouldn't all be surprised by it, considering the fact that he's probably going to be the odd man out on this offensive line. So let me know down below. This will be the pinned comment here on today's program. Will Thayer Munford make the Raiders 53-man roster? Give me a yes. Give me a no. My answer coming up after this YouTube ad break. If the Raiders keep 9 offensive linemen, if I was a betting man right now, I would say yes. But if you were to tell me, Mitch, gun to your head, Munford going to make the team, will he be a part of that 53? I'm actually going to say no. And I'm going to say no because I know how confident the Raiders are in their first 8 offensive linemen. So I would say the top 8 guys that are locks to make this team, obviously barring injury and barring if another player were to ask for a trade, but Kolton Miller, Dylan Parham, JPJ, Alex Cappa, DJ Glaze, Jordan Meredith, and then the 2 rookies that they ended up drafting in Charles Grant and Caleb Rogers, these 8 offensive linemen are a lock. And quite frankly, let me know down below if you agree or disagree with me for those who are watching live. Does anybody think that Thayer Munford is going to make a roster spot over those 8 guys? I know I don't, and I don't think that many people do either. But if we're talking about 9 offensive linemen, there has been one lineman that has been a part of this team for the past 2 years, but I'm telling y'all right now, and when you think about chemistry, how important that is on a line, from what I gathered, one of these players hangs out with offensive linemen a lot more than the other player. Munford, not saying he's not as tied in, but from the Raiders offensive lineman that I talked to, Dalton Wagner is a name to keep in mind. He was somebody that was on the practice squad last season, but he's also predominantly on the right side. So we got to think about what the Raiders did this offseason. They go out and they get Caleb Rogers in the 3rd round. He could do a lot of different things on the offensive line. They also went out and got Charles Grant. When the Raiders drafted Charles Grant, they kind of said, hey, you're going to be on the left side. And I think that was the plan. For Dalton Wagner, he is more predominantly on the right side, and he is really only a right tackle. He's a powerful human being, but he's a monster, on the offensive line. I would say Dalton Wagner and Kolton Miller are the 2 biggest players on this Raiders team in terms of height at 6'8", 320 pounds. But Wagner, from what I understand, is impressing some of the other players on that offensive line. And I'm starting to wonder if the Raiders do keep 9 offensive linemen, I think it's going to be a battle between Dalton Wagner and Thayer Munford. And if I was a brand new regime and Pete Carroll and John Spytek, and if I saw one guy out there on the field that also is liked a little bit more, let's say, by some of the Raiders offensive linemen compared to another player who I don't know what the hell's going on with him, I'm going to go with Dalton Wagner. And I think that the Raiders might go that route as well. So for that reason, I might put Dalton Wagner over Thayer Munford. Right now, it's still, again, it's May, it's early, but you have to admit, Munford not participating at this point in the offseason, a guy that needs to be participating, is a little bit funny to me. Coming up next here on the show, let's get into some other Raiders news that I think that the nation needs to know. And for a team that values the trenches, for a team that's going to really rely on their offensive line, this is going to be pretty damn important. Now, if you do not know, we are going to be giving away an Ashton Jeanty jersey at the very end of the month. Friday, May 30th, I will be live on this show, and we will put a giant wheel up on the board, and somebody's going to go home with a Jeanty jersey. If you want a chance to win, you can send in a $5 super chat, which we've already had a bunch of $5 super chats on today's live show. But if you're like, you know what, Mitch, I can't always join the live. Dude, I hear you loud and clear, right? If there's one time that I totally get it, it's in the month of May, it's in the month of June, it's in the month of July. I've been planning for my wedding. I've been a busy guy as well. So if you're unable to join our shows and you still want an opportunity to win that Jeanty jersey, you can super thanks. If you're on your phone, it'll look like this. You just click this button right here, drop a super thanks in, and if you're on your laptop or desktop device, it's going to look a little bit different. It'll look like this. There's those 3 buttons over there next to share. You'll get a little bit of a drop-down menu, and then you can click super thanks right there. Click that bad boy. Worst case, you don't win. Best case, I don't know. You appreciate the show, and you want to give Chugs and I a little bit of a tip. Though we don't keep any of the money super chats, just so you know. They go all back into the pool for more content. Let's get into the Raiders news and notes that I want y'all to see, and it is being reported by multiple Raiders beat writers that right now the Raiders 2025 starting offensive line, Kolton Miller at left tackle, Jackson Powers-Johnson at center, Alex Cappa at right guard, DJ Glaze at right tackle. According to reports, left guard is up for grabs, and right now the 2 players that are battling for that left guard position are Dylan Parham and Jordan Meredith. Now, from what I am gathering, it sounds like Alex Cappa is your right guard, which makes me nervous. It probably makes a lot of y'all nervous as well. I could do a whole nother show on why it makes me nervous, right? But now if we know that the Raiders believe that Cappa is their right guard, and yesterday at practice, it was the Dylan Parham, Jordan Meredith rotation show at left guard. So clearly they're trying to see what they got in both of those players. But the Raiders brought back Jordan Meredith. Dylan Parham's on the final year of his deal. So my question to the nation is this. Who do you think is going to be the left guard for the Silver and Black? If you think it's going to be Dylan Parham, I want you to type DP. If you think it's going to be Jordan Meredith, I want you to type JM. I'm going to sit up here and I'm going to go with DP, which is probably one of the biggest pauses I possibly could have ever done. But I'm going to bet it's Dylan Parham because it's not a disrespect to Meredith. I do think Parham, though, is a good starting offensive lineman. He did also start multiple years at left guard his first 2 years in the NFL. Now, these PFF grades are from what he did last season on the right side, but he does have some of that versatility. But then at the exact same time, Jordan Meredith, in a limited fashion, looked really damn good last year, especially at left guard. And he showed out and he played well in the preseason, and he showed out and he played pretty damn well last year. I mean, quite frankly, when you're looking at numbers and numbers alone, Meredith was good with James Craig. Meredith was good with any offensive lineman, Joe Philbin, that we threw him in. The problem or the question is going to be, what exactly do the Raiders want to do? If the Raiders want to go with a little bit more power, I honestly think Meredith makes more sense. If they want to go with somebody that might be able to move a little bit better as an offensive lineman, then I think Dylan Parham makes a little bit more sense. Now, Caleb Rogers isn't going to be in the mix. Charles Grant, again, not going to be in the mix. But it does really sound like the 4 offensive linemen, Miller, JPJ, Cappa, and DJ Glaze, are locked into those starting roles. Obviously, things can still change, but if the season were to start today, Cappa would be your right guard. Now, the reason why I am going to show you this thumbnail is because this is a video that I did earlier in the week, and it was bad news for this potential Raiders starter. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it yet, this guy right here is Dylan Parham. If you've already seen it, then, well, shit, you already knew that. But the reason why I want you to go watch this video is because I break down a lot of the things that I was kind of just talking about, where if you were Dylan Parham and you had 3 years in the NFL and you're like, hey, this is my contract year, this is a prove-it year for me, I need to be able to show either this team that I'm on or my future team that I can play. If the Raiders are serious about starting Jordan Meredith over Dylan Parham, I honestly think that Parham could be a candidate to potentially ask for a trade. Because if I was in Parham's shoes and I was a third-round pick by an old regime, I would also potentially do it. So if you haven't already, please go watch this video. It's going to be available to y'all down in the comments and down in the description of today's show. So again, appreciate everybody tuning in. I wanted to be able to just give you some of the extra news and notes that it took me to gather over the past 24 hours. I really wish that I was able to do a show today based on the news from today's practice, May 22nd, but I'm an honest human being, and I haven't gotten anything on it yet. So once I do get an update, maybe I'll share that information with you all tomorrow. Maybe we'll get the information a little bit later on. Appreciate everyone, though, tuning in to today's show. And a reminder, again, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications. That way, you never miss a thing.